One of the largest railroad unions has narrowly rejected a contractual deal between rail employees and the White House. Now, the White House got involved in an emergency to try to negotiate a deal between the rail employers and the rail unions. And while they did come up with a deal, many of these unions have actually voted against it. The latest is the union known as SMART. So the union SMART Transportation Division voted the deal down by 50.9%. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, which represents engineers, announced 53.5% of members voted to ratify the deal. Now, the two are considered among the most politically powerful of the 12 rail unions in contract discussions. I should also note that, look, I don't know how it ended up this way, but having 12 unions, I think, fragments this organized effort to have better working conditions. I think it'd be better suited to have one way more powerful union, but whatever, that's a side note, it's not that important. Let me move on. Already 7 of the 12 unions have voted to approve their contracts, but in recent weeks, 3 of the smaller unions have also rejected their contracts and are back in negotiations. Now, this is important to keep in mind. If a deal is not reached soon, a strike could happen as soon as December 5th, and Congress might get involved to prevent the workers from engaging in what's referred to as a sanctioned strike. There's still a possibility for them to engage in an unsanctioned strike, which is referred to as a wildcat strike, of course. But a national rail strike, which could happen as early as December 5th, would threaten the nation's coal shipments and its supply of drinking water, while shutting down passenger rail and shipment of goods as the holiday season revs up. The US economy could lose $2 billion a day if railroad workers strike, according to the Association of American Rail Workers. But as I've mentioned before, and this is an important fact, Congress can in fact step in and force the unions to accept the deal that's been negotiated. Under the Railway Labor Act of 1926, Congress can intervene in the case of a railway strike to impose a contract on the railroads to block or stop a rail strike. Some Republican lawmakers have said they are ready to impose a contract negotiated earlier this year by the White House. Congress can also extend strike deadlines or force both parties into arbitration. And look, the main sticking point here is paid time off or time off without retaliation to deal with things like, family emergencies, medical emergencies. It is insane that this very reasonable demand is not met by the rail companies, and I'll explain why that is in just a moment. But the main sticking point for rank and file members has been the points-based attendance policies that penalize workers for taking time off when they're sick or for personal time and contribute to grueling, unpredictable schedules that weigh on workers' mental and physical health, they say. In June, a 51-year-old union engineer put off a doctor's visit and died of a heart attack on a train weeks later, his family said. So this is very serious. And what is the likelihood of a wildcat strike occurring should Congress decide to intervene? Well, I spoke to Jonah Furman, who is a labor reporter over at Labor Notes, great reporter, and he made a really good point about how the rail industry is, monopolized. It's effectively a duopoly. So when you consider the fact that on both coasts, there are only 2 major rail companies operating. In total, there are effectively 4 major rail companies in this country. And so over the last several years, they've actually cut their workforce by 30%. This has been going on for 6 years, well before the pandemic. And why have they been doing it? Well, we know, because they want to cut the costs associated with labor to ensure that they maximize profits and fulfill their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. It's the classic corporate greed. It's how the system is built. And if the workers decide they want to do a wildcat strike, they do risk getting fired. And if you think that the rail companies would be terrified of that, you'd be wrong. Because if they lose the workers and there are delays in the supply chain, what other options do you have? I mean, it's a monopolized industry. And they've been wanting to cut their workforce anyway. It is just insane.
Yeah, all right, so I read about a dozen articles before I got to one that clarified a really important issue. So most articles say, look, the president and the government overall can force the workers back into work, okay? So that is relatively true. Finally, in the 12th article, they say, oh, by the way, they could also force the companies to take any terms that the government decides. Why was that not mentioned throughout?
Well, we know.
Okay,
we know.
Exactly. No, it's amazing. Corporate media is just the way, I mean, the way the right wing complains about shadow banning on social media. No, mainstream media shadow bans workers and average Americans all the time. They never even mention, the great majority of the articles don't even mention, you could also force the companies to do it. You could force the companies to take any deal. But Republicans are proposing, no, let's crush the workers. And the Democrats largely agree. The Democrats, look, on social issues, Republicans are the worst. They drive hatred in this country nonstop. But on economic issues, in some ways the Democrats are worse. Why? Because they're the good cop, bad cop. And the good cop in that scenario, which is the Democrats, is more dishonest.
Yeah, because they pretend to be the representatives for the common man, the common worker. But because of corporate contributions and wealthy donors in our political system, because of the fact that we have so much money in politics and we've legalized bribery, that has effectively turned a two-party system into a one-party system on major bread and butter issues like the economy.
The only person I've seen, and maybe there are other progressives in the House, but the only person I've seen fighting for the workers in this scenario is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
yep.
And so the rest of the Democratic Party is like, no, obviously you support the companies. The poor guys only made 20 billion in profits over the last couple of years, 18 billion of which they put back in stock buybacks. They're trying to take home the loot, okay, so they don't have to share it with any of the workers. Guys, think about it. It's not like they have any trouble with sustainability at all. They're making literal record profits, and they're like, no, we won't give you a single sick day. Back to the assembly lines, the mines, and in this case, the rail system. Get back. And so I saw a video, Anna, from More Perfect Union, and I want to give them credit. They did a great video on this, and they just showed different rail workers.
Yeah.
And one of them was, every story was heartbreaking. He's like, I barely got to see my kids growing up.
Insane, yeah, no.
And because they don't let us take any time off, okay?
Can I just jump in real quick? But guys, look, the reason why I gave you some of the insight into how the companies are functioning and the monopolized nature of the industry is because, think about it, the reason why these companies are relentless in refusing the sick leave, some time off so they can deal with family emergencies, is because they've already thinned out their workforce so significantly over the last 6 years. They don't have the workers necessary to fill in should someone call in sick. But that's their own doing. That's their own doing. They did that to maximize their profits.
They're not on a razor's edge. It's not like they're gonna go under. It's not remotely close. Almost all of, by the way, the other thing that came through, which is really interesting, it's actually the first time I've seen it in the More Perfect Union video, is the workers going, I can't believe how media's covered this.
Yep.
Usually you talk about the politics, you talk about the parties or whatever it is, you talk about the company. I've never seen them talk about media before. But now it's dawning on them, oh, our biggest problem is the liars in mainstream media. Because they say, oh, they're getting a 24% raise.
That's not the sticking point though. The sticking point is the time off.
Hold on. But what they don't tell you is the context of the raises they didn't get all those other years.
Exactly.
And it built up and built up and built up, so they had to finally do that. And then but they save on their costs by saying yes, but then I'm not gonna hire a whole bunch of other people, and I'm gonna make you work whether you're sick or you're not sick, whether you need to spend holidays with your family or not. And so they just don't, the media doesn't give you the context. And so the workers are like, it's so weird, why are they lying about all of this? Because they're corporate media. They're here to screw you.
They're not here to represent your side of what's currently occurring in this situation. And yeah, I just wanted to also note that while a 24% raise sounds pretty good, right? No one's gonna say no to a 24% raise.
By the way, over 4 years.
Over 4 years. But the other caveat is it still won't be anywhere close to what they need to be paid to mitigate the damage done to their personal finances due to inflation. Not even close.
You've got inflation, you've got all the years they didn't get raises, you've got it's spanned over 4 years, you've got the fact that they can't take any sick days off, right? The mainstream media gaslights so much, I had to see a Bernie Sanders tweet to confirm, oh yeah, I can't believe that there's 0 sick days. I can't believe it, right? And Bernie was like, no, it's actually true. There is 0 sick days, and that's why they're negotiating this contract. But if you read a normal mainstream media article, they'll say, oh, they're getting this huge raise, and they're still complaining. It could cost the rest of the companies a lot of money, $2 billion a day from our beloved corporations. They don't say it that way. They make it seem like it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt you, and it's the workers' fault. Not one article insinuates that it might be the corporate executive's fault. Not one.
Yep.
They're gaslighting you as a matter of fact.